Hello everyone and welcome back to Let's Play Cyber Shadow. In the last part, we went through Chapter 5 and now it's for Chapter 6, the Robot Factory. The shortest level in the game overall, which I've always found really weird because I remember dying here a decent bit, but it's probably just because of how protracted it all is. And notably, it's also the only stage that doesn't immediately start with a checkpoint and teleporter in any regard. Like, this checkpoint's right here, but there's no teleporter, so you can't go back to anywhere else until I think, from here on, I want to say until, like, sometime in Chapter 8. I think you're locked into this for the next little bit. But last time we got the dash and the dash slash, and you need to learn how to use that quickly because they want you to use it to get past some weird platforming sequences in here. The main gimmick with this entire level, even, is that it's got lasers right out of a Mission Impossible movie. If you get touched by one, you activate the alarms, which causes the green little holes in the ceiling and floors to bring turrets out, and it also causes that buzzsaw enemy to spawn. The alert does eventually end, but I think you can end it sooner yourself by destroying any cannons nearby, as well as the aforementioned buzzsaw. You don't really get any other punishments for getting spotted. It's not like we're forced to make this be a stealth sequence. It just makes it easier for you to progress if you don't get spotted. So take your time, realize the pattern of the laser alarms, and hopefully you'll get through no problem. And there's another one of those weird 3 doors, and we can only open up to doors of level 2, so level 3 we probably gotta wait on for a bit. Alright, here's a teleporter, and notably, I think that's the only teleporter that we're gonna see for a while. Because there's not one in any of the next couple chapters for reasons. Before we move on, though, we want to come over here and destroy this little dispenser, because there's a little section behind it for an HP up. I think this is one of the last HP ups I found in my first playthrough. Only because the first time you destroy one of those little dispensers, it just gives you some SP, so you're going to be the same here, so I just didn't bother destroying that one until cleanup. And thankfully, there is eventually a way to tell where power-ups roughly are in the game's levels, but we won't be talking about that until cleanup in about 2 parts from now, I think? I think that's when it happens. Notably with the dash slash, by the way, like I mentioned last time, you can combo it, but it's pretty hard to do that consistently at this point because of the distance enemies are apart, and plus, sometimes they just place enemies in such a way that getting combos with the dash slash in midair is kind of hard to do. It's super satisfying to pull off, though, and I believe there's even an achievement tied to it in 2 ways. I think there's one for getting, like, 10 enemies in a row with it without touching the ground, and I think there's another one for staying in the air for, like, I want to say it's like 30 seconds. I might even have those confused. And there's one specific place in Chapter 8, I believe, that's pretty much meant to do that, as long as you can figure out the timing. So now we got these little laser wall generators that just create active hitboxes around them, but as you saw there, if you destroy them, you can then knock them into other enemies. You can even speed up their rate of movement if you wanted to make them just your active weapons. They're only in this stage and its boss fight, but they can be rather effective at making other enemies simpler to deal with, because I think they instant kill anything they touch compared to your sword at this point, which even though it does more damage, enemies are starting to get more damage. This is another sub-weapon, I forget the name of this one. It just fires forward when you slash, the range of which depends on how fast you mash the slash button. Although I think it does try to aim in at the nearest wall, as you can see. It at least fires multiple hits, so it can be more useful in a more crowded area than the charge blaster, but this thing rarely shows up in the game anyway, so it doesn't get much of a chance to do much. Like, there's some sub-weapons you can get that only show up in, like, 3 locations total, it seems like. But we're gonna use it, because it's time for the next boss fight once this train keeps moving. Boss fight this time around is the tunnel cleaner. The main spot we have to hit is the giant obvious light that opens up every here and there, but it doesn't take a lot of damage, and plus, if you fall down in the space between it and the train car, you're dead instantly. It's gonna fire some projectiles from its upper and lower extremities into you, and it can also just fire a gigantic laser beam. But our main tool here to do damage is actually the aforementioned barrier enemies, because they do several hits of damage. I want to say each one does roughly about 1/4 of it. You can bounce back the big projectile if you time it well enough, and I recommend doing that. Especially if you're going for the achievement here, which I believe is to beat this boss fight in less than a minute or something like that. Also notably, with this particular sub-weapon, you can aim it up and down by pressing up and down with the D-pad. but it's pretty limited in how far you can move it up and down, and even then, like I said, it's not around often enough for that to become a major thing you should note. This boss fight gave me some trouble the first time around, only because I was focusing more on trying to do damage to it than the enemies around it to do more damage to it. But at the end of the day, it's not a lot to worry about, besides the instant kill potential it has with you. So we can't go back at all. Great. But with that, we're already at the end of Chapter 6, actually. This is a very short chapter. It's the shortest in the game. The really annoying thing is, we're going to need to backtrack to the end of Chapter 6 down the line for some items. And we can't do that from anywhere in Chapter 7. This path goes off screen for a reason. This is still a long level, but for different reasons than most. Notably, you can end the chapter opening screen early by pressing, I think, start or something. And I accidentally did that during some of the first few stages if you were paying attention to how long that song goes on for. I think the actual tune's like 15 seconds-ish. Chapter 7 is another stage I died on frequently early on my first playthrough, but for different reasons than most. Because they want you to use the dash slash around here a lot over instant kill spikes, which is dangerous. Plus, we got a bunch of mini-bosses in this chapter, such as these laser walls we need to destroy the main head of to open up. You can parry the cannons above and below it to just make things a bit safer for you, but this can get pretty unpredictable pretty quickly and pretty uncomfortable at the same time. In particular, I recommend, and it's mostly because I can never remember if it actually saves it right, after you've destroyed this one, backtrack to the checkpoint to recover whatever health you've lost, on top of saving the fact that bosses died, because I can never remember if killing that thing is permanent no matter what. But now it definitely is. Whenever I think of this game, there's like 4 or 5 screens that come to mind. One from Chapter 8, the very start of Chapter 1, Chapter 4 in its entirety just about, or no, Chapter 5 in its entirety rather, and actually yeah, Chapter 4's boss fight. But this screen comes to mind especially because I don't know what it is about this section right coming up here, but I died here so many times. And at the end of the day, it's not because of the usual spike pits that cause my problems here. It's the fact that we have to deal with them on moving platforms in front of another one of those wall mini-bosses. And the altitudes are just off enough, thanks to the movement, especially of the wall's main head, that this is obnoxious on a first playthrough. Spam any shuriken you got early on just to make this go by quicker. In fact, I recommend buying the SP recovery at that last checkpoint just to help with this. This fight's rough, and I was sweating the entire time I was practicing and actually playing that. Thankfully, after that room, weirdly, the entire level kind of mellows out for a little bit. There's still a whole bunch of instant death spikes, but you don't have to worry too much. Although that enemy there is actually a first for the game. Now we're going to start seeing enemies that spout out kind of a purpley magenta fire. And that fire is going to be a consistency throughout the rest of the game. A lot of bosses are going to have an attack that can do that. That fire lingers for longer than you'd think, so whenever you see it, just keep away from it, period, and try to stay on the opposite side of a platform in case it's on one. Also, you might be noticing, enemies are starting to do a lot more damage, like that wall there you need to parry a bit to kill more quickly, at least. Did 3 damage to me at once? Yeah, this is where the game starts to get a little rough in terms of damage output, especially if you haven't been grabbing all the HP upgrades when you could, or if you're doing a low percent run, which I believe there's a feat for not getting power-ups in the game. This game's difficulty curve is generally rather nice, but there's the occasional screener moment like that where they just do so much damage that it's obnoxious at points. Thankfully, we're coming up on ways we can help deal with that a little bit. Be careful of the big acid bubbles in this stage, because as you can see, they hatch out into skulls that track onto you a little bit and try to rotate into you. As long as you're taking your time, you'll probably not get hit by them too badly, but be careful all the same. And here, I think, is the first time we've seen one of my favorite sub-items in the game. This is an SP converter. it just gives you an SP, or no, I guess it's an SP generator. The converter's a different weapon. This just gives you some SP every couple of seconds, meaning you can spam your abilities completely hog wild and not have to worry about anything. Log 16. The essence and spirit appear to act in opposition through shared mechanisms. The former is a stillness of sorts that grounds a being in the physical world, while the latter is pure intent materialized into a physical form. Log 12A. With essence extracted from a carrier vessel, I can bring forth a new life. The extraction process is invariably fatal for the donor subject. The new vessel is left slightly unstable by this trauma. Log 12B. Spirit energy can be harvested for use in high-power weapon systems. The donor survives extraction, but is greatly weakened. Essence extraction can be fatal? I wonder if that's important at all. This chapter is sort of where they really start to tie together a lot of the game's plot points and concepts, but in some regards, I really wish they had more actual cutscenes to explain this stuff. I kind of get what they were going for, because they probably were like, well, the main character probably can't remember much at the moment, so let's have these logs here for you to read and experience it yourself. But just like a couple of extra cutscenes here and there with maybe Legion to help explain some things could have gone a long way to make this more approachable for some people. Climb over to that wall and we find these little friendly robots. And a dancing cat. If you're low on health, I believe the one on top will also even generate health for you. With that said, that's about all this does besides unlocking a feat, I believe. I think there's an achievement for seeing that room. With that said, right now is basically the only time you have to go get that achievement besides playing through the game again, because for reasons you're unable to revisit Chapter 7 and the very early portions of Chapter 8. It's kind of weird, but it's not like there's any pickups you could permanently miss anyway besides that kind of achievement-based stuff, so it's not a big deal in my eyes. Plus, you can just actively mash through with the dash slashes here, and it's really absurdly fun for me to do. So, where we need to go is actively behind that door, but we need to go power it first, and thankfully this chain of platforms is here to take us to a place where we can do just that. Use your dash jump sparingly here, because if you mess up, you're just gonna be falling down and losing some time. I was so close. I can sense the shrine. If only I could breach the firewall and open the door. Time for number 2 of like 3 or 4 of the hacking sequences. You need to be careful here because this one starts to place some bottomless pits that you're not immediately going to notice. The red portions, by and large, you need to avoid, like those red dots in the distance on the far right side of the screen. Those are actually spikes. And this one even has a mini-boss. We need to attack this security core, which actually reminds me of one of the boss fights from Mega Man 04. We can only attack the core by taking care of the little sub-cores around it, but need to be careful of their tracking shots because, well, frankly, the areas around here are so small that it's very easy to accidentally walk yourself into one. Once the core itself is exposed, it's relatively easy to take care of, but you do need to kind of take the approach of hit and run because it fires at such a rate that you need to actively run away to the other side to get some more damage in. It doesn't take too many hits to take out, but be careful all the same. I think this is a cyberspace section I actually died in compared to like the first one. So let's go see what's behind door number, I've lost count at this point. Ominous music. Log 557. I'm able to prolong my lifespan by injecting myself with essence, but at what cost? No matter, I need time. Log 412. When injected with essence, a synthetic vessel holds its form rather stably at first. However, due to gradual dissipation, it must eventually replenish itself by seeking out more essence. So the synthetics just drain essence out at a larger rate than normal people do, so they're inefficient. Log 37. She never did approve of my research. Was she aware that synthetics cost human lives to produce? Log 26. Her illness is progressing rapidly. I've done all I can. I'm powerless. You're probably starting to figure out who's writing these logs now. Log 29. Her clan's stories are fascinating. They speak of their memories living forever, passing into the ethos. Is that the true power of essence? Log 212. The doctors were of no help. With an essence containment field of my own design, I have stabilized her vital functions. But for how long? I must devote every waking moment to finding a cure. A cure for my daughter. Log 375. My containment unit will not be able to hold her forever. I will need something far more powerful in the near future. Unfortunately, this means sacrificing more of her clan for their essence. There is no other way. It must be done. Log 611. The facility under the reactor is almost complete. Even if her body may die, her consciousness can be preserved in a synthetic vessel. Finally, a solution. I'm not so sure about that, Doctor. Close your eyes. Feel the essence flow around you. Concentrate. Manifest your will through your fingertips. That's it. Ready your sword. Drift into solitude and oneness. Gather your inner power and channel it into the blade. Most of the skills of our clan can be taught, but your innate ability is something special. I knew it from the day we met. The time of the legend is nearly upon us. There is little time left. You must complete your training. Only then will you have the skill and power to heed the dragon's call. So she was kept here for a while then, based on the fact we reacted to her essence in some regard. Let's see what's further down. Log 551. I have assembled a core of synthetics to help with the gathering of essence. Also, I enlisted one of the ninja clan, the Apparator, to aid me in this endeavor. And there's that name again. Hey, man, our rival in red from stage 1's clearly been involved from the start, and, oh boy. Log 559. Apparator has completely abandoned his clan and agreed to go through the process of synthetic conversion. His life will be greatly extended, much like my own. Log 569. The Apparator has been transferred into a synthetic body. His dedication to my daughter still drives him, even if he has lost all other vestiges of humanity. Log 614. I have dispatched a squad of advanced synthetics. They hunt the remnants of the clan as well as civilians. The people's sacrifice will not be in vain, but more essence is required. Doctor, it was not worth all this for your daughter alone. Log 622. The ethos may only be reached by those who carry the bloodline of the clan. It is, as legend has it, a place beyond time. The shrines are the key, and they unlock limitless power. Log 653. The dragon shrine is overwhelming. It cannot be accessed for more than a few milliseconds at a time. The Falcon Shrine is more amenable to exploration. With the essence I have extracted from their clan, I could open a pathway. Of all who can heed my call, only you remain. Yet, your time is running out. Your fading essence will not be enough to carry out your purpose. I shall intervene and lend you a tiny sliver of my power. To ignite the sparks of your final strike. Your skills have been enhanced beyond their old limitations. You can now jump higher, move faster, and charge each of your skills to release stronger attacks. Given this overwhelming might, the unworthy shall fulfill the clan's ancient mission.
to balance the flow of essence. To play your part, you must pay the ultimate price for your master's deliverance. You serve me in life and in death.
Ominous, but worth it. So now each of our abilities has been upgraded. We can now charge our slash for a stronger attack, we can charge air strikes, we can charge shurikens into kunai for more damage, and most importantly, we have a double jump. This is the greatest mobility upgrade in the game. In fact, with this, we can now basically grab every upgrade in the game we haven't already. We just need to come across the next teleport point to be able to access any of it. This does take up more SP to use, though. The upgraded abilities all take some amount of it, and namely, in order to actually use the charges, you do need to hold the attack button first for a little bit until you start going purple. But this means I now have my most comfortable way of fighting, charging my sword and then just annihilating enemies in 1 or 2 strikes. Your abilities are now beyond what we thought was your maximum potential. Hold attack to charge energy and release it to unleash it. A charge strike at the security door will open it right up. So now we can open these orange doors we've been seeing since stage 1. And thus begins the longest chapter in the game. Since all of your skills can now be charged for some extra oomph, be sure to explore their full extent. You're more powerful now. But with that, I'm going to need to end this off here. Thank you guys for watching, and in part 7, we tackle chapter 8. See you guys then.